Okay, so I told you that I would upload the economic systems PowerPoint for you. And so I'm just going to go over this video. A lot of it will be similar to what I talked about in our Google Meet, but I just wanted you to have access to the PowerPoint information as well. So when we're talking about economic systems, we're talking about the idea that there are three basic questions of what should be produced. So what are you going to make? How should it be produced? So what resources are going to be involved in the inputs to produce that item? And for whom should it be produced? Who are we making this for? And so if you think about it, like I like to use the example of diapers. If you decide that what you should make is diapers, then you've got to figure out what inputs, what land, what labor, what capital, what resources do you need to produce diapers? And then for whom should it be produced? You got to decide, are you going to be making diapers for old people or diapers for babies? Okay, so who are you making it for? Because when you decide who you're making it for, then that helps you figure out partly how you're going to produce it, also how you're going to market it and advertise it in part of your entrepreneurship. So what are you going to make? How are you going to make it? And who are you making it for? And there are four types of economic systems. There's traditional, command, market, and mixed. And the only one of those that truly exists in society today is a mixed economy. The rest are mainly models of extremes. But most of them are mixed somewhere on the scale between a market and a command economy. But we're going to start with traditional, just to look at what a traditional economy may have been. And the three economic questions depend on the tradition, the custom, what has happened in the society. So what are you going to make? Well, you're going to make the same thing you've always made. How are you going to make it? The same way you've always made it. And who are you making it for? The same people you've always made it for. So the good thing about this is you know what's expected. Nobody is asking you, what are you going to be when you grow up? Because you know what you're going to be when you grow up. You're going to be whatever your dad was or your grandfather was or your great-grandfather was. So you know what is expected. And there are going to be strong ties to the family and community. We think of traditional societies as sort of each family or each group plays a role that is needed in the economy or in the community. Some problems with this is, I always like using the goat herding example is you're going to be a goat herder if your dad was a goat herder and your grandfather was a goat herder, but change is discouraged. What if you don't want to be a goat herder? What if you want to be a dentist, right? I don't know if you recognize that from a Christmas movie, but what if you want to be a dentist instead of a goat herder? Well, that's going to be a problem because that is discouraged for you to do. This is inefficient. What if you're a really terrible goat herder and all of your goats run away? This is not the most efficient method of production. You're not working to your comparative advantage. You're not specializing in what you do the best. You're just doing what people in your family have always done before. This also leads to very few choices in consumer goods. What if people don't want goat meat and goat milk? They want cow's milk and cow meat or chicken meat. You don't get that because in your community, you herd goats and you have goat meat and goat milk. And there's not going to be an increase in standard of living. If you're doing the same thing you've always done and there's no competitor, then there is nothing there to force you to get better at what you do or to create goods and services to compete against somebody else that's going to increase our standard of living. And I'll give you an example of this. Today, we think about cell phone operating systems. So we've got iOS and Android. I'm going to say it incorrectly. I'm going to call it Apple and Android. I know that those are not exactly right, but you know what I mean. When you've got an Apple, so I got like super duper excited a couple of years ago when Apple came up with the swipe text, and all the Android users were like, we've had that forever. But the reason Apple got it is because Android already had it, and the competition between the two companies keeps driving each company to make better products and to get something that the other one doesn't have. So like Android will come up with something new, and then Apple's like, oh, we need to figure out how they did that. And then they create that something new and then go a step ahead and make their camera better. And then Android's going to be like, oh, we need to figure out how they made their camera better, and they make the camera better, and then they come up with something else that's better. And so the competition increases the standard of living till we end up with the new iPhones have way more capacity and ability to do things than like my original iPhone 4 that I had. In a traditional economy, you're not going to get that type of competition that drives the standard of living and has innovation that exists in, say, a market economy or a mixed economy. The next one is a command system. So a command system is where the government controls all factors of production. And that's hard for us to think about because we have so much private business in the United States. And make sure that you understand that when we talk about private, we're talking about people owning things. And when we talk about public, we're talking about the government owning things. So the easiest way to think about that is you go to public school. That means it is a government run school. People who go to private school, that means that the government does not play a role in that school. It is controlled by usually a board of not a board of education, a school board that is private, that are private citizens, usually that have students who go to that school. They pay for tuition and their teachers and their buildings rather than the government providing it for them. So when we talk about public, we're talking about government run, not out in public, meaning public schools, public roads, public highways. The government provides those, and then as opposed to private, meaning citizens do it. So in a command system, everything is public. The government owns everything. The government's going to decide what's made. They're going to decide how to make it, and they're going to decide who they're going to make it for. And the good thing about this is the government makes sure everybody has a job. If the government owns all the labor, then they can tell people where to work, how to work, when to work, and they are going to make sure everybody has a job. So that is a very good test question. You will see that again. That the major advantage of a command system is full employment. Everybody has a job. But if you're going to get a job that the government provides you that you may or may not be good at, that you may or may not enjoy, that you're not going to get a raise based on how good you are at it because you have no competition, you have no incentive to work hard or to produce really well. So people aren't going to go to their work and be like, oh, if I work really hard, I'm going to get a raise, or I can get a bonus, or I can move up the ladder and become the boss. That doesn't happen in a command economy. So there's no incentive to work hard. And if there's no competition, if the government is the only employer and the only producer, you don't have competition. Again, let me stop and pause. I'm talking fast. Just like in a traditional economy, there is a lack of inventions because you don't have competitors. You don't have more than one company producing a similar product where they have to compete and continuously innovate to make the product better and better. You also don't have a lot of choices. If you don't have people who are saying, like Shark Tank, you don't have people saying, hey, I think this is a really good idea. I think people would buy this. I think it would be useful, and the government's making all the decisions. You're going to get whatever the government is producing and whatever they're putting out there, not innovators and entrepreneurs who are making decisions to create new choices and new products for people. So then we've got the third system, which is a market system. A market system gets confusing because we call our American system a market system, and we're not. We are a mixed system. A true market economy has no government interference except the protection of private property rights. And we in the United States have lots of government interference. We go to public school. That right there tells us we're not a market system. The government provides schools for all of our people. That in itself makes us a mixed economy. But we'll talk more about what a market is in our next unit. But basically, it's where buyers and sellers come together with no government interference. So the market, we tend to think of it as a place like the supermarket or the farmer's market. But a market is any time a buyer and seller voluntarily come together and exchange goods and services. And prices tell us what's going to be bought. And this will get us into supply and demand a lot in the next unit. But there's some really good things about a market economy. So if you look at all these advantages, in a market economy, you get to choose what you want to be when you grow up. You get to think about what you're going to like and what you're good at. You get to purchase private things. You get private property. You can go out and figure out what you want to buy and what you want to spend your money on. And you can spend it however you want. Some people like really fancy cars, and some people are like, oh, I'd rather spend my money on vacation than a car. And you get to choose that in a market economy. You can own your own property. You can own your own business. You can make investments. You have lots of companies that are competing and innovating. So we have tons of goods and services. If you don't believe me, go look at the cereal aisle again. If you look at the cereal aisle at Walmart or Harvey's, you're going to see lots and lots of types of cereal of competitors and businesses that are out there trying to compete to earn a profit based on your taste buds. But there are some problems in a true market economy. In a true market economy, there is no Social Security, there's no disability, there's no Medicare, Medicaid, there's no government subsidies, there's no WIC, there's no welfare type of programs at all. So if people are young and don't have parents who can take care of them, there's no DFACs to go in and take care of kids. If people are old and they haven't saved enough money, or they are older and the markets crash because there's no government help to prevent markets from crashing, and they lose all of their savings, there's no help for them. They're going to be out on the streets. In a true market economy, if you get sick and you can't work, there's no protection for you, and you will be out on the streets and homeless. So there are some really frightening things in terms of the ability to take care of vulnerable people in a society, in a true market economy. And there's no guaranteed employment. Businesses can fail. People can lose their jobs easily. There's a huge disparity in between the wealthy and the poor in a true market system. So because there are so many disadvantages to both a true command and a true market system, every economy is a mixed economy. And they are going to combine private ownership of goods and services and property, along with government regulation of those goods and services. So here, in our last bullet, it says that some of that government regulation includes environmental laws, safety guidelines, laws to protect consumers. The main thing you need to understand is that in a mixed economy, the major role of the government is consumer protection. All right. Now, some mixed economies, the government oversteps that. Some, they don't go far enough. But what they should be doing is consumer protection laws. And that can include things like minimum wage, or it can be things like the Clean Air and the Clean Water Act. Okay, so anything like that the government is going to step in and regulate. Even the fact that they make public school mandatory up until a certain age, that is to make sure that you are protected, that you can get a job, that you're educated enough to work, so that you're not out on the streets. So in the U.S. economy, there is a limited role for government, but it's not as limited as we like to think that it is. The government regulates a lot of aspects of our life, but we do have freedom of enterprise. That means we can work where we want to. We can be entrepreneurs and own our own business. We have freedom of choice to live where we want to live, work where we want to work, buy the things we want to. We can start our own businesses in order to make a profit. We can compete with other people. But we also benefit from competition, just like I was talking about with our cell phones. The fact that Apple and Android compete with each other makes my life better, because Apple keeps coming out with better stuff. I don't know how to use an Android, so those you Android people, sorry, but I'm dumb when it comes to Android. But it helps both Android and Apple users, and some people switch back and forth. I don't know about those people, but some people do that. We can own our own private property, right? I own my car. I own my house. The bank owns my house, but I'll own it in about 5 years. So we can own our own stuff, but the government does regulate those things. So that is what's happening in the American economy. The goals of a mixed economy, a free enterprise economy, are to be efficient. That means to operate without waste. To be equitable, that means to be fair and just. It doesn't mean equal, but it means similar. Security, that means to make sure that our markets, that are like Social Security, that there are jobs out there for people, that if you lose your job, their unemployment benefits will kick in until you can find your next job. Stability means that our markets don't go up and down crazy, that our money doesn't lose its value overnight, things like that. And then we also want our economy to grow. We want it to get bigger and better and provide more things for us. So in the bottom part of your handout on the economic systems, we did the top part together. On the bottom part, you see these here as your goals of free enterprise, and those are the words that are on the bottom. And you have a handout that you need to read about each type of economic system, and it will walk you through this question about how well does each economic system provide for these goals. So that's what you should be working on today. Let me know if you have any problems. And we will talk about the circular flow diagram. Hopefully we'll be together next week and we'll be able to do that. But if not, because I do an activity with it and I really don't want us to miss out on that activity. But hopefully we'll be together. If not, we'll talk about that in the upcoming days. So work on your economic systems and get that turned in, and I will talk to you in the morning. I hope you have a great day.